All right. Well, thank you all for coming here this afternoon. Thank you. I was a little surprised this morning from this morning's press conference. So I wanted to, talking to Brian and the Revolution team about a response to this morning's press conference. I have some prepared remarks here. And a lot of people in that press conference referred to Everett as an industrial city, like a dirty industrial city. And I'm trying to get past that with the folks here in the Commonwealth. We're not a dirty industrial city anymore. Yeah, we are still the city, or we were the city that fueled everybody else when it comes to power and energy and food and all the other necessities. We get the trash facility pushed on our doorstep by the city of Boston. And they talked about that this morning, right? I mean, talked about the inability to pass over the Alfred Street Bridge. Well, as a Northeastern student, I used to ride over the Alfred Street Bridge every day and over the Point Pleasant Bridge in Cambridge every day to get over to Boston, right? And they talked about transportation and mitigating that, and that's going to all happen in the Chapter 91 hearing and in the MEPA hearing. For us right now, this is a dormant, blighted, contaminated, defunct power plant that's sitting on the waterfront. With someone coming in and spending close to $1 billion of the private investment to remove this unsightly building, restore access to the waterfront, build a 4-acre community park, run a water taxi service in conjunction with the Encore's water taxi service. And you see what Encore did, right? Next door on a 40-acre super fun site that sat for 60 years empty. That's what's going to happen here. No one's going to come in here and redevelop this other than someone who has the ability and the private resources to build a stadium. Or something that will, something of that magnitude. So, in Mayor Wu and I, we agree on a lot of things. I mean, I'm a huge public transit advocate. I mean, I think I was the first community to run bus lanes in the Commonwealth. They talked about them forever. And, one night, the next day, I just put the bus lanes in, put the ones in and ran bus lanes. And I want to connect the bus lanes in Everett on Rutherford Ave to the North Station T Station. We're the first city north of Boston, and I always talked about that. If we can connect these bus lanes in Everett to Boston on a 1-seat ride, you can bring them all the way up 99, all the way up Route 1, and you can take thousands. They talk about 40,000 cars that go over the Alfred Street Bridge. Well, they're not Everett residents because we use the bus to go into Boston. We walk, we ride our bikes. We don't have the luxury of driving our car and parking in Boston at $30, $40 a day, whatever it is. We walk or use the bus in Everett. So the cars over the Alpha Street Bridge, majority of them are Everett residents. We use public transit. So I'm trying to rebuild the public transit system. And I've been doing that, way before Encore and way before the Revs were here. I advocate, we're getting a commuter rail stop, as you all know. That's part of the host community agreement. I'm working with Phil Ang, who is an unbelievable person. I think you all know Phil at the MBTA. He's probably the best person that I've dealt with in my 18 years as mayor when it comes to working with someone in the state, a secretary of cabinet or transportation secretary. He's wonderful. And as you know, we're building the pedestrian footbridge that's been promised to us. The funding is there. That bridge connects to Assembly Row. We're designing the underpass. So we have an underpass, if you ever want to see it, an underpass that's close to 70% redesigned. So when you come over the Alpha Street, when you come over the bridge from Assembly Row, you have the ability to walk under the Alpha Street Bridge and connect to the 4-acre park that the Revs are going to build. And there's not going to be parking here. And that was my stipulation, no parking. Because the problem in Everett we have is congestion. Is not that we're building housing or people are it's the cars, right? It's cars. Cars are is everyone's problem. That's the problem we are facing in the state and the country because of lack of real, reliable, sustainable public transit investment. And we need to do a better job of that. And I'm trying to do that in Everett. So we have the raise grant that the city of Everett received with the MBTA to bring the civil line into our community. The bus lines that will connect to the commuter rail stop as well that we're going to be building, but also hopefully go down to Rutherford Ave and connect to the North Station. The stadium is not going to drive cars. I mean, we're going to work. I don't know if you went to the TPC Norton where they talked about how they geofenced from Uber and Lyfts, where they were not allowed to come to the facility. They had to go to designated areas away from the facility, and then they shuttled them in. Just like we run the shuttles now. And Encore runs shuttles from the T stations to the Encore Casino. We're gonna have to, but that all gets done at Chapter 91. All gets done in the MEPA hearings. So when we're talking about the stadium and you're talking about traffic and the impacts on the residents of Charlestown and Sullivan Square, well, you're not really being totally transparent, and that's what I don't like about government is the misinformation. I'm very transparent. I think you all know that. You can ask me any question you'd like. Very honest when it comes to anything, any of that stuff. This is a game changer for the city of Everett. All union built, right? I believe all union built. We agreed to that, right? Union built, and I know we're negotiating with the inside the facility with union labor, which is another home run for us. There's something. Robert talked about me reaching out to him. Well, it really started with prior to Wynn Casino when they were trying to, if you all remember, if you probably don't know this, but they were trying to bring a National League baseball team to the city of Everett. That's probably news to a lot of you. So that kind of sparked my mind at the time when they talked about a venue, and then when that kind of fell through, I knew the Revs were always looking for a home, and I knew the impacts of what you'd have to do to clean this site up, and you're not going to build housing, and there's no commercial office space being built. You see what's happening with commercial office space. Everyone's working remote these days, and no one's going to offices, and so there's not many more opportunities. And this is a great opportunity, and we have a great, really philanthropical organization. I mean, or team. I mean, Robert and Jonathan are, to me, my book, are wonderful, excellent people. Have the pleasure of meeting people like Ani and Brian, who's the president of the Revs. We're excited to really work on this development here in the city of Everett. We're, like I said earlier, we're moving away from that industrial past of Everett. We're redeveloping the Exxon site. The Davis company had bought the docklands, another 100-acre site that was all tank farms. So as you can see what the mission here in the community of Everett is, we're looking to build more hotels, more restaurants, more spaces for families to enjoy. My hope is that not only is the stadium in the waterfront park, but they build it out like they do down at the Gillette Stadium, where you have restaurants and shops and hotels, and there's a lot of land back here. I always talked about Encore being the catalyst for redevelopment. So. To those this morning that talked about and there was a made mention that there was a reach out to me and I didn't follow through on that. If you want to ask me that question, we can talk about that. But that is not true. I'll leave it at that. But I'm going to introduce Brian. Brian's going to say a few words. I'll close it out, and then we can take some questions and answers. All right. So Brian. From the Revs. Brian, come on over.
Appreciate it. Thank you, everyone, for being here. I wanted to thank you, Mayor DiMaria, for being here and for your work to support the project. We don't expect the road forward is always going to be easy, nor do we expect to ultimately agree on every single point, but you and your staff's professionalism and candor have made the conversations productive. It's clear to us that you have the city and its residents' best interest in mind, and with that vision, and our teams working together, we know we'll develop a great plan for this site. And while our preference is to continue to make progress in our conversations with Everett and Boston through our meetings, we felt it was important to address remarks made by Boston not only earlier today, but throughout the process to date. Once the legislation was passed, we reached out in November to Boston to start the process of negotiating a community impact agreement. From that point, it took multiple correspondences to even receive a response from the city of Boston. And that response was they were unwilling to start discussions at that time. After pushing over and over, we were finally able to get the city to meet with us to begin our conversations. This did not occur until February 14th of this year, over 2 months from when we initially reached out to request a meeting. I think it's important to be clear that from the very beginning of this process, the Revolution have been pushing expeditiously to develop a fair and community impact agreement from the very start of this process. Since that first meeting in February, our team has met with the city over half a dozen times, and throughout the entire process, I can only describe the tenor and tone of those meetings as cooperative and cordial. So you can understand why it's upsetting and frustrating to us that the only thing being said publicly about these meetings is negative. It's become abundantly clear to us that despite what progress we are making in our discussions with the city, another version of events has apparently and will continue to be told publicly in order to prioritize politics over getting a fair agreement done in order to complete this project for the benefit of the city of Everett and the region at large. Anytime we've been asked to provide information, we've provided it. And in cases we didn't have the information, we've launched a study to get the information. The city is well aware of this, and we are working currently on a number of studies on traffic and mitigation. We have also at times requested information from Boston related to their venues currently in the city and being built currently in the city. And often they don't have the same information about those venues that they're asking us to provide for our venue. So that's also contributed to the time it takes to get this information, because often we are starting from scratch with these studies. This isn't the first time we tried to work with Boston on a stadium project. Previously, we had a lot of momentum and great interest from Mayor Marty Walsh at the time. Unfortunately, Mayor Wu, who is a councilor, blocked any chance of that coming to fruition. And you should follow up with Mayor Walsh about that if you'd like. We have a tremendous opportunity to transform this region of Everett for decades to come, converting a dilapidated, dirty power facility into a beautiful park and event venue for everyone to enjoy. We're doing this by committing private money to acquire the land and build a facility. In many places around the country, and notably in the city of Boston, there are hundreds of millions of public dollars used to construct stadiums for private use. So while we still have a lot of work to do to develop these community impact agreements with Everett and Boston, I'm confident they will be the fairest stadium deals this region will see in terms of funding and positive transformation of a site. I want to close by acknowledging that we have entered formal mediation with Boston, and we appreciate the work that Tom Glynn and Rebecca Kaiser will be doing to facilitate that agreement. Included in the rules of that mediation is the contents of those negotiations to be kept confidential between parties. Certainly that is our preference, and we hope that moving forward, Boston will start to honor the spirit and rules of mediation and work directly with us and our people and the mediators, rather than their current process of press conferences and information leaks to the media outlets. We look forward to re-engaging with the city's team and hopefully moving the process forward so we can deliver this transformative project to the city of Everett, the city of Boston, our fans, and the region as a whole. Thank you.
Brian and I will take any questions if anyone has any. Yeah, so that well, if you all recall, the removal of the power plant from the DPA passed the House way back when. This is 5 years ago, and then it got stuck in the Senate. And it was at the time the Senate president's wish that we would work with the environmental on a community benefits agreement to make them to bring them on board. And we did, and you know, it was my planning team. It was the state rep from the area. It was, of course, the Revolution people and others that worked in different I think it was the Conservation Law Foundation and other groups that came up with this community benefits agreement, and that was their negotiation to remove this site from the DPA. That wasn't, I guess, the city of Boston's negotiation or the city of Everett's real negotiation on, you know, let's say a tax package or what would be, you know, how it would be built and, you know, what mitigation. You still had to go through Chapter 91 and MEPR. That was just like a request from the Senate president, I think, or the Senate at the time, asking parties to convene with the environmental folks to get them on board. So, and when you talk about the $68 million payment that Encore made, this was special legislation that was created, right? You had And though there now legislation was created after the fact here with the whole DPA and coming to terms and binding arbitration, binding mediation, or whatever it may be, that was they were a surrounding community and they negotiated a surrounding community agreement with Encore. That's a gaming facility. They it's different than I say other types of businesses, right? So I don't think the two correlate, right? I really don't see that. Did I answer that good for you? You happy with that?
What's the current state of Everett?
I think you.
Just following up on this, is there any consideration of raising that mitigation fee to the mayor, where she says, that she, from this morning's press conference, said that the scale of this project would require a lot more than $750,000 to address some of the things that they are concerned about over there. So is there any consideration to raise that mitigation fee?
Well, that would be their process of sitting at the table and negotiating an agreement. And if they don't come to an agreement, there's a mediator will be in place, and then it goes to binding arbitration, right? So then someone will say, well, no, your requests are not attainable for them to meet, and they can't get this project can't not be built based upon what you're looking for. Again, that 750 was just to remove the site from DPA. I mean, I don't know if that's even on the table anymore. But what are the impacts? So my question is, what are the impacts to the city of Boston for a stadium in the city of Everett, where we're going to mitigate all the traffic impacts, right? We're going to commuter rail stop, the Ped Bridge, the shuttles, the Silver Line expansion, a lot. I'm sure the T is going to have a lot of conversation. MEPA in Chapter 91 will mitigate all the impacts. I know they were talking about walking over from Sullivan Square. A lot of people probably will walk over. Talking to Phil about the possibility of having a commuter rail stop at Sullivan, that you'd be able to get off. So if you're taking the orange line or the red line, you can get off at Sullivan and then get on the commuter rail and get to the stop here in Everett. I don't, as a mayor, when the Flatley Group and others are building Hood Park here, they closed the underpass here in Everett one time. It killed the city of Everett. It decimated us. It shut down the whole community because, again, the 40,000 people that drive through Alpha Street Bridge do not live in Everett. Come off of Route 1. They don't want to pay the $1.25. They drive down 99 through my city. And I should put a pole here. That's what it should be. It should be a toll booth here, right? That way they stay on Tobin Bridge. But they go, and so when they shut that underpass down, it killed the entire city of Everett. So I don't know what the city of Boston expects, like tax revenue. They don't. It's not in Everett. It's not in Boston. It's in Everett. We're going to receive the taxes. Mitigation on traffic and transportation improvements. That's going to be done through Chapter 91. Like I'm saying, so I don't receive any taxes from the Hood Park and all the parking spaces they've created, all the businesses that they created, or what Mr. Flatley is going to do here, right along the waterfront. There's another big development. City of Everett doesn't receive any monies from those development. It should be, how do you mitigate the impacts of traffic this stadium is going to cause on Rutherford Ave? Well, let's get Rutherford Ave done. I think Encore gave the city of Boston $50 million to the plan to work on Sullivan Square, to the fixing of Sullivan Square. Where's that $50 million? It's still sitting there. Like, where's the plans to renovate Rutherford? Where are the bus lanes so we can connect Everett to take thousands of cars off the roads? That's what we should be talking about. That's being a regional leader. That's working together and moving people. So, but they can answer better about, that will happen if they sit at the table. I have a great relationship with them. We talk frequently, open the lines of communication.
I think we said this morning was that actually the greatest impact on the stadium here will be felt by residents in Charleston on Everett. Do you agree with that?
Do I agree with that? The greatest impact will be felt by the residents of Charlestown, not by the residents of Everett. I think she said something because no one lives in this area. Is that what she said? No one lives in this area? Well, I think the people of the line in the village would take exception to that comment that no one lives in this area, because I know of foul residents that live right a block away from here. So the impacts would be felt by cars coming to the facility. Okay, there's not going to be any cars. I'm actually reconsidering allowing handicap parking, increasing and I really want to make sure those that come are people who have, seniors and people who have handicapped children and that type. I really want to make sure that we resolve that, make sure handicapped people can come here without problems. But Sullivan Square is right there. Assembly Row is right over here. We're building a bridge connecting commuter rail stop. We're telling people there's no, you can't park right, because if you come to Encore and try to park in the area, you can't park. It's special status, so you can't park on the in the area here. And I'm sure you can't park in Charlestown if you drive your car here as well. Stadiums, game day, people, or venue for a concert. People, when I go to Fenway, I don't drive. I go to the Garden. I don't drive. Who wants to spend $40, $50? Now with Encore shuttles and stuff, and with public transit, people are going to be pushed to use public transit. So I think the residents, when I ran for state senate in 2001, the residents of Charlestown were complaining to me about the industry, about the waterfront. They looked out their window, and all they saw were scrap yards and power plants, and they were like, they wanted something different. Now they're going to get this beautiful, you've seen the renderings. It's this beautiful stadium that's just going to really, just be like a, people see. When you look, now you're looking across your window in Charlestown, you're not going to see smokestacks. You can see, a nice stadium lit with people working. And right now, there's no jobs here. We'll have thousands of jobs here, which is great for our community, great for the kids of Charlestown. Great for the sports programs, the soccer program, and I'm sure they're going to be very, they'll be very supportive of the sports teams and the other organizations in the city of Charlestown as well. I know Robert does that in Foxborough, does it throughout the Commonwealth, so I'm sure he's going to do it around here as well with the Revs. So I don't see the impacts. Maybe I'm blind, but if you have no available to park any cars, and you can't Uber and Lyft to this area, and it's geofenced, and you have to use public transit, we have to increase the public transit opportunities here. That's what we got.
What is the status currently of Everett's community agreement?
Yeah, so I've been holding like community meetings and asking residents, what do you want me to see? Ask them, asking the music department, the stations, the schools, the police, fire. What do our impacts are? How do we have to? What should we do to mitigate? And so we've been doing that. We've been having those meetings. We've had a couple meetings with them as well. We'll probably eventually, I think, have a mediator as well put in place to mediate our, the host community agreement, the community benefits agreement. But I know we'll get to an agreement.
Mr. Mayor, this election year, what do you say to voters who don't this project and the congestion, the noise that might come with it? What do you say to them?
Yeah, no, it's a great question, Maria. It's nice to see you. So what I say to them is what I've been saying to them for a long time, right? I think the biggest issue is congestion, is traffic, cars, and a lot of residents are upset with me that I'm building. As you know, we're probably like #1 community in the state building housing. I think to create more affordable housing, you create more units. Put more units, supply and demand. The more units you have, my kids need some place to live. There's 6, 24. A lot of kids need places to move into. People need housing. Build it without parking spaces. Build it without giving them off-street parking stickers. Make them use the public transit system. Increase the public. So residents of Everett, they're going to get hopefully a Silver Line, a commuter rail stop, the Ped Bridge from Assembly Row over, which connects to our Northern Strand Bike Trail. And if you know where the Northern Strand Bike Trail is, if you walk off of Main Street in Everett, you can get into the Northern Strand Bike Trail. And now you'll be able to, first time, be able to get to an Orange Line T station in about 60 years. So I tell residents is right now it's a defunct, blighted, contaminated power plant, probably leaching contaminants into the harbor like the Monsanto chemical plant was when we cleaned that up, that we're going to get a tax generating parcel that's going to work with our, our community groups, our sports programs, will be a great business member of our community, and we'll be generating much taxes as well and jobs, So, everybody's afraid of more cars. No one wants more cars, more traffic, more congestion, But we got to kind of, what I've been trying to do here, and I think people will understand it. You know, I'm not just trying to make an area POD, trans-oriented development area. I'm trying to make the whole community trans-oriented. So you can get on a bus anywhere in Everett, on a bus lane, and get to a commuter stop, get to the Ped Bridge, get to the bus lanes on Rutherford Ave, hopefully connect to North Station. So, you're going to build a reliable, sustainable transit system. And right now, Phil, I think we're going to get there. Yeah, she sees it more differently. I don't know. You probably have to ask. I'll reserve my opinion. You know, she is a mayor. I'm a mayor. I do like Michelle personally. You know, I remember she called me one time. She was excited about the Revolution Stadium. She told me her children love soccer. They play soccer. So I know she's a Revs fan. You know, it's a funny place, state of Massachusetts, state of Boston. I've been wanting to be thrown through the political ringer a lot myself. You know, I took Encore away from the city of Boston. I took the casino away from Suffolk Downs. That didn't pan out so well with me in the media, as you know, and bringing a stadium here to the city and competing with other venues, and I'm sure they're not too happy about that as well. So, but you know what? I fight for my city, and that's all I care about is fighting for my city. So, you know, you'd have to ask Michelle how she's thinking, but. Yeah, so I wish I could tell you exactly, but so I know it's binding arbitration in December, right? So in December, Everett and Boston have to have an agreement with the Revs. If they don't have an agreement, there's going to be a judge that basically says that this. And you could probably do a better job on that one than I can. Yeah, you want to. You have the timeline.
I'll talk about this too. So yeah, the mayor's absolutely right. If we don't have an agreement done by the end of the year, it goes to binding arbitration. I think it's an important note. I think there was foresight in the legislature that said, there's a chance that these deals might not get done, that there could be a party making it very difficult to get this deal done, and frankly dragging it on and leaving Everett, with this indefinitely. So I think we certainly agree. We hope to get a deal done with Boston before the end of this year. But if we can't, we'll go to binding arbitration. There's no real timeline on that. It's not a multi-year process, though. I mean, that will move relatively quickly, probably comparatively to what we've been through so far. Once we get through that process, assuming we can strike deals that make sense for everyone, we would then enter that, as you mentioned, the state process. So that includes other things Chapter 91 to meet, but because we're on the waterfront, there's a number of things we'll have to do to develop this property, make sure it's compliant with a lot of those rules and regulations. The good news is we know at a very high level it should be in terms of the size, the shape, proximity to the water. That's why when you see in the renderings, where the stadium is, the general size of it, the park that we want to put in place. So we feel good about that. To the mayor's point, there's a number of steps that take place during that, including environmental and traffic mitigation things that we have to go through. So that process should take, I think it's anywhere from a year to 18 months. Again, unfortunately, because as I mentioned before, we haven't had a chance to get this far along yet, so we haven't gone through that process, but understanding it's 12 to 18 months to get through that state permitting process. And then after that, we have to take down the power plant. And again, that's what we're signed up for. We will take down the entire power plant ourselves. So once we take that down, then we can start building the stadium. So that whole process, taking down the power plant and building the stadium, is another 3 years. So, there's a multi-year process still at play here, and we're so early in the process. But what the road ahead hopefully looks like. Well, at the time we were, like I said, we've been looking for a stadium for the Revs, and transit-oriented development is important to us. We have a stadium. We're drawing almost 30,000 fans in Foxborough right now, but we really want to bring the Revs to public transportation. And that's why this whole project is important to us. We want more fans to be able to access the Revolution and not have to drive down to Foxborough, right? I mean, for people who care about environment and care about that stuff, we're taking cars off the road by a project like this, just at a macro level. So for us, bringing the Revs to public transit is something we've been working with, various people with for 10 to 20 years. With Mayor Walsh, he was really excited about the prospect of doing it. There's one site in particular in central Boston that, he was excited about. We thought we could do it in a way that would be really additive to the city, also help fix some of their, infrastructure that they had in terms of their public works project that we would help relocate and do some things in. But again, he told us that Mayor Wood at the time was in the council, basically blocked it from moving forward, and there was no progress to make. So There has been excitement in the past. There's momentum in the past. We love the idea of being in Everett. The passion the mayor feels for the city and the people in the city that we've been able to meet with, residents of the city have been able to meet with. Like, we feel like we can have a real impact in Everett, not just in this site. The economic catalyst will be what it will do to the waterfront from this side forward. I mean, Encore did a great job over there. We want to start that process on this side of the waterfront, and then just really be engaged in the community. I think if you want to talk to us or dig into what we do in the community, we have great mentors in Robert and Jonathan Kraft on that. And we that's the best part of in sports is the impact you can have. So bringing programs to Everett, working with the kids in Everett, giving more access to soccer and sports in general. Those are the things that ultimately we're really passionate about, that I'm really passionate about. This isn't the fun part. That's the fun part, and we're hoping to get to that as quickly as possible.
Given that your group is right now currently campaigning against Josh Kraft for this fall, how much do you view this morning's press conference through the lens of political campaigning? Does it worry you as president of the Revs that this stadium project might be used as a political football?
I mean, it's probably a good question. I'm not a politician. I run a soccer team. All I know is that the Revs are going into the whole process with the goal of getting the stadium done with great deals for Boston, great deals for Everett, and a great asset for the community. I mean, that's all we can do from our side. If there's anything else involved, that's really beyond us, unfortunately. I mean, in a number of ways. I mean, if they're just fans of the Revolution, I mean, we want input in terms of what the game day experience should be. The thing about soccer, I mean, we have the most diverse league in the United States in terms of where people come from, how many different athletes we have across our teams in MLS. Even with the Revs itself, we have that program. I think a unique thing that soccer brings that other sports don't, we have an academy program. So it's a play program for all the best soccer players. So my goal, 10 years after we open the door, is to have multiple kids that grew up in our programs, playing our free programs in Everett, then playing for the Revolution. That our team would have not one, not two, but three kids who grew up in Everett, went through our programs, and wound up playing for our team one day. So I think from a community standpoint, we're going to be heavily involved with, right on the ground with community programs. And we'll do community programs that aren't just tied to sports and athletics. So if you look at, our community efforts now, soccer inclusion, soccer all is a major one. I'm involved with a great project called Boston Scores, where we do a lot of after-school programming for kids in soccer. So I think from a Revs standpoint, we really want to be engaged in the community. We want the community to be part of the stadium, the vendors we use, the events we have. And then, we talk about the big events. Everyone thinks about the big events, and that's understood, of course. But the other piece of this is a community asset. So, whether it's festivals in the park, artist fairs or local music things that we do in the stadium, these don't all have to be 20,000 persons. These could be 500 person events. These could be 50 person events. We want this community to view the stadium as an asset. And frankly, we want the community in Charlestown to view the stadium as an asset for them too. So this isn't just about the larger 20,000 person events, but it's about the community events that we can host. And a big part of the process of design is going to be that, part of the conversations we're having with Everett, and we'll continue to have those. But if this isn't a great asset for the community, it's not something we'd want to do anyway.
Good.
Thank you.